There is great advice everywhere, and it's good too. I mean, everywhere you look, there is some good advice. Maybe it's coming from a person, and you learn this way of looking at life, and it's radical, and it's awesome. And then you read a book, and you get even more into that. And then you read another book that was in the notes of this book, and all of a sudden, you see a whole new way of looking at it. And then you got to feel like you got to look up all the speakers that are listed in this book, and look up this YouTube video, and then you find this way of looking at life, and this person did it 2,000 years ago, and you start getting obsessed with this way of looking at life. And then you hear some older person tell you this, and that sends you down this rabbit hole, and you find advice everywhere. And a lot of it, the problem is it's good. I'm just thinking about all the places we get advice from. And this list is not exhaustive, but think about it. You have Instagram. A lot of great people are putting advice out there, whether it's a post, a carousel, finding interesting things on there, or it's just a reel, someone giving good advice. Maybe it's TikTok. Maybe it's YouTube, long form advice. You've got your friends giving you advice. You've got Google. You can find all sorts of articles on advice. You've got ChatGPT. It may not give you great advice, but it's going to give you the average sum of some interesting advice, and it can help. You've got your coworkers. You've got your parents. You've got older people, an older generation pouring into you, giving advice. You've got your family, relatives, a crazy uncle. You've got your brothers, your sisters, whoever is in your family giving you advice. There's churches, there's groups of people, whatever club or sports group you belong to. There's books, there's podcasts, there's mini books, there's mini podcasts, and then there's sermons. There is so much advice everywhere. The thing is, it's all good. And so with all this advice and this rise of information where you can access advice anywhere, wouldn't you think that the world would be perfect? Or if not perfect, maybe just a little bit better? Shouldn't at least people know that they know how to be successful? Shouldn't there be more successful people? So first, I can think of two types of advice. I think there's what I would call short-term advice, where it's like, what type of restaurant do I need to go to? You look up some reviews, someone gives you a recommendation. It doesn't really affect too much, but it's short-term advice. And we're pretty good at looking up short-term advice and following through with it. But then there's long-term advice. I would think of this as, what major are you going to do in college? Or should I quit my job? Or what should I do in the future? Or should I save money? Think about more long-term things that are small choices building towards a lifetime of success or a lifetime of satisfaction in work, something along those lines, more long-term. So you have those two types of advice. The long-term advice is harder to test. It can sound really good or it can sound really bad, and it can be more paradoxical. It's maybe harder to test in the short term and see if it's actually right. This is the stuff that's more specific and doesn't apply to a specific person. With all these things of great advice, all this long-term advice that's out there, we in some ways are paralyzed by options. If you have to decide, say 200 years ago, between being whatever your father was, being a blacksmith, or going to move somewhere else and just hope for the best and find something, well, those are kind of your two options. It's either the unknown or the known. You've got two options, one good and one maybe good, who knows? And maybe you could be an outlaw. So you're choosing between good and bad, smart and dumb. But now, a couple hundred years later, and I'm not saying we're better or worse, just saying it's more obvious now, you have a lot more opportunities. You are now choosing not just between good and bad or good and okay. Now you're choosing between two great options that weren't even available before, 4 good options, 10 meh options, and then 4 more bad options. And so it's pretty easy to make advice on, do you do the bad option or a great option? But there's not a lot of advice, or maybe there's too much advice about if you should do the good option, or which good option you should do, or which great option you should do. And because there's so many options, in a lot of ways, we're paralyzed by our choices. We spend more time trying to figure out how to be successful and deciding what advice to follow than actually following advice. And there's this quote about the nation of India. It says, this nation is so big, and there's so many people here, and so many different perspectives, that one thing can be completely true, and the opposite thing can also be completely true. I'm not saying that truth is relative. I do not mean that whatsoever. But I am saying for some things that are about life and long term and ways of looking at it, there's so many different ways to go about it that there's not one particular way. So there's absolute truth, but then under absolute truth, there's a few things that are a little bit easier to figure out, maybe a little bit harder to figure out. It's like you can climb a tree. Maybe you climb this side of the tree, maybe you take this branch, maybe you take this branch, or maybe you take this route, or maybe you grab some claws and climb up, or maybe you get a rope, or maybe you get dropped in from a helicopter. There's a bunch of different ways to climb a tree. And so when there's so many different things out there, the solution is not that we need more knowledge. So if you've made it this far, there's a bunch of advice out there. And so what can I say that can improve on this advice? If the perfect advice has already been given, then the best advice I can give you, the advice that I kind of just happened upon, I wouldn't say anyone actually told me, but it's just there, it's low-hanging fruit. It wasn't really because I was smart, but the advice is this: follow advice. Like when someone tells you to do something, if it makes sense, then follow the advice. And by actually following advice and not just looking at better advice or looking for good advice or trying to find more advice, just follow the advice you're given and see where it goes. I am not necessarily successful. I enjoy life, but it's not like I'm super rich. It's not like I have some incredible job. There's really no reason to actually listen to what I'm saying. So take this all with a grain of salt. But I can tell you that you should actually do something. I followed advice when I went to college and I enjoyed it. I remember something my brother told me about, spend this amount of time with friendships and just having fun at college and spend this time actually locking in and doing your schoolwork. And I remember there were times where I was like, well, I should actually be around people. I don't have to be absolute straight A's because there's no such thing as A+ or A- in college. It's just you are A's or you're not A's. And there's times to be with people. So maybe it was great advice for me and it just worked, but I decided I was going to follow it. And I think it turned out pretty good. I also think about the advice I've heard of slowing down and just focusing on what's in front of you and stewarding things. And the past 2 years of doing that have been pretty great. I just followed advice that a lot of smart people and that were older told me about, and it seems to be paying off. I just follow advice. I think about meeting my spouse. I've always heard you just wait and, take the opportunities you're given, but you don't have to force it. You can't force it. And I followed that advice. Seemed to work pretty well. I think about the advice to follow Jesus. I hear so many people say to do it, and it makes sense. And so I follow advice. I'm not saying you just follow anyone and everyone who says to do something, but basically when someone who's wiser and has credibility says something and enough people agree to it and you see some evidence of it, then do it. Sure, there's wisdom in following God's leading, but that's basically it. When someone says to do something and it makes sense and they're credible, I'll follow that advice. Why don't more people do that? Why are you struggling to actually do something with your life if you're watching this video? Why don't I do it all the time? Why do I still look for more advice? Well, I think there's a couple of reasons. One is I think we're sometimes too prideful to follow advice. Some of it just sounds too simple. And to actually sit down and do it is maybe a one-time decision or a long-term decision, and we have to do it every day. And we're like, well, I did it once and it didn't really work. So I'm just kind of prideful and I don't want to sit down and actually do it. I think it's one possibility. I think another reason we may not follow advice is because you hear someone say one thing and you hear someone say the other thing or another way to go about it, and you're always looking for the quickest and the best or some version of it. And by looking for more advice and seeking out more advice, it's not a bad thing, but it can't be the only thing. I also think about how there's sometimes just too many choices, and it can be paralyzing. There's just so many choices, and by choosing one thing, you're saying no to some other things. And so it's just a paralyzation to even know what to do. Do you go to college? Do you go to tech school? Do you do this with your life? Do you take this job? Do you do this internship? And there's just so many options. And if we just took an option and just did something, just followed the advice that we're given, then I think things could work out. We just have to choose which advice we're going to follow because there's so many options. Another reason, and I think this is probably the most likely one, is that we're just numbed to all the options. There's so many options and there's so much advice that we're become numb to it. We're too numb to act. We have so much distracting us, so much good advice, so many good things distracting us. It's not bad things distracting us, that we just don't act. People make money off courses telling people what to do, and we keep buying all these courses or keep watching all these videos or buying all these books or listening to all these podcasts, and we don't actually do anything about it. And all we should do is find some advice and follow it. And when we don't do that, well, it's kind of easy to consume and to feel like you're really smart. I think about a very simple thing like deodorant. I use some spray deodorant, and it's great. It does its job. I'll spray some deodorant and I'll go about the day. And then the next day, I'll spray some deodorant and go about the day. But when we do that with advice, imagine advice is deodorant, and we spray and we just keep spraying and we just keep spraying and we just keep spraying. In a lot of ways, we're literally wasting that advice because we're not doing anything with it. And then we have so much advice that we've caused a problem because we've taken in all this advice, but we haven't done anything with it. Deodorant has to be used throughout the day, and then you apply some more, and then you use it throughout the day, and then you apply some more. Now, of course, there's times where you need more, and there's maybe a day where you're just hanging around the house and you don't use as much. Who knows? But essentially, when it comes to advice, we have so much of it. And the more you hoard and the more you use, the less useful it is. There's this great Dave Ramsey quote. I don't remember it exactly, but he says, money is a lot like manure. If you pull it on a pile and hoard it, it stinks and is nasty and gets gnats. But if you spread it around like fertilizer, it'll grow some things. I think it's a little bit like advice. If you actually use advice, if you actually follow advice, then you're going to grow a couple things. But if you just hoard it and you just keep consuming it, then it's going to get a little rotten and it's not going to mean as much because you're not doing anything with it. All that to say, my advice, the best advice I never really received, I just kind of happened upon, is follow advice that you're given. Don't hoard it. Don't go looking for more advice. Just take a little bit of advice, apply it, get some more advice, apply it, get some more advice, and apply it. It's all about doing something with the advice you've gotten, because it's easy to know everything and not do anything with it. So I've got two things to end. First is find a mentor. In the Western world, we've gotten obsessed with thinking we can learn everything in a classroom, with thinking that we can read and intake and go to lectures and hear, and that's enough to live life. But sometimes the best way to learn is to watch someone do it. You can learn so much more by texting someone, meeting them for lunch, watching how they move about the day slowly and realizing, I'm in a hurry. Then you watch how they greet the waiter. And you can learn how to be friendly and watch a video about being extroverted on YouTube, but it's not the same as watching someone actually do it and watching them greet the person taking your order and watching them make small talk with someone else, and then sitting down and having them listen to you and hearing their perspective on life and how it applied to them and what their advice is. And then leaving that conversation and realizing that watching them interact in daily life was a whole lot more helpful than just hearing about how to interact in daily life. Sometimes seeing and experiencing is a lot better way to live. And so by finding a mentor who you can learn from and live daily life with, even if it's just meeting one-on-one for lunch, it's a great way to learn beyond just information. And the final thing, if you've watched this far, this is what you should do. You should stop taking in all this advice and go do something with it. Get away from what doesn't matter and make time for what does. Relationships, your work, truth. Just get away from everything that's false, that's online, that's telling you to do stuff that doesn't matter, and actually go do something. I think you'll be glad you did.